There's always been speculation as to whether or not ghosts are real. What happens after we die is an unknown mystery, one that we solve all too late to tell anyone about. There are those among us who believe that when we die, our spirit moves on to the great beyond. Some spirits, though, for whatever reason, cannot calmly move on into the afterlife, and those remain as ghosts on Earth. Haunting thought, right? Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified every day for more amazing content. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5. The Ancient Ram Inn. There are scary stories, and then there are really scary stories. Then, of course, there are the real scary stories. Tales of actual events that actually happened to real people. The fact that these stories actually happen to someone has the ability to make the story that little bit more scary, especially if that means that there really is a dead person involved who could have become a ghost. The Ancient Ram Inn was originally built as a pub in a small market town in the English countryside. It was reportedly owned by the local church when it was first built back in 1145. There have been reports of haunting here since the place was first built all those years ago, and this building has been studied by a great number of paranormal societies from all over the world. This old building is said to have seen the very worst that humanity has to offer over its long lifetime. Some of these events are said to have included murder, Satanism, and child sacrifice. The inn itself is said to have been built on an ancient pagan burial ground, giving further strength to the reports of ghost-like figures and other happenings. Dating from the 12th century, this ramshackle old building is said to experience freezing temperatures inside at times for no reason whatsoever. And there is said to be an evil atmosphere that has even the most seasoned ghost hunters quaking in their boots. The site on which the ancient Ram Inn was built was apparently once used for child sacrifice, so it's no wonder that this place is one of the most haunted places in the UK. Reports from guests are said to have seen strange glowing lights that appear in the corridors. Then there are the ghostly presences that walk the halls and the succubus that some people claim to have seen in their rooms at night. There is, though, one specific room at the back of the inn called the Bishop's Room. This low-ceilinged bedroom is said to infect anyone who stays in it with an oppressive sense of dread. Priests have been known to refuse to enter the room, and apparently, according to the hotel's owner, 8 people who have stayed in the room have then needed exorcisms. This then is one scary place where all evidence points to the ghost stories being real. Number 4. The Bodmin Prison Ghost. Real-life ghost stories tend to come, for the most part, from either scenes of extremely horrific events or from places where various events of the same type took place. This is why a large number of the haunted buildings in the world today are often insane asylums or prisons.
Being a teenager is hard. Don't even think about it.
Back home to the place
I'm on track for a college scholarship. Is she okay? That's my mom. You drinking? No.
Number 4 on our list of 5 real-life ghost stories comes from a prison. The Bodmin Prison, or Bodmin Jail as it's also referred to, is a historic former prison in Cornwall of the UK. This huge and old scary place was built in 1779 and closed in 1927. Most of the prison is now in ruin, but there are several pieces of the jail that have been kept open and have been turned into a tourist attraction. In the 150 years that Bodmin Jail was open, it had seen over 50 public hangings and was the first prison in England to hold prisoners in individual cells. After imprisonment for debt was abolished in 1869, the prison found that it had space, and so this space was used by a naval prison who ended up taking up a whole wing of the jail. The jail once housed prisoners as young as 5 years old, and was known for having one of the last remaining execution pits. One woman called Selina Wadge, who was an unmarried mother accused of murdering her child, was executed here and is said to still roam the halls. She's said to choose children and pregnant women to haunt especially. In the past, there have been reports of hands tugging on your own as you walk through this space, and one man even reported feeling as though he was being strangled. Some staff have seen faces peering out at them from the old jail cells, and children are said to scream as you enter the 4th floor as a faint ghost of a woman attempts to steal them away. Whether you do or do not believe in ghosts, this place is home to quite a few. Number 3, Myrtles Plantation. Most scary real ghost stories occur following some immense hardship or troubled spirits. The next story on our list comes from Louisiana in the US, where it seems there's no shortage of unhappy spirits. These spirits are probably unhappy because someone came along and built a house on their sacred resting place. That's right, Myrtles Plantation was built atop an ancient Native American burial ground. It would seem that when the country's new inhabitants came to America, they didn't take the time to respect the culture or traditions of the old inhabitants. This plantation near Baton Rouge is said to be one of the most haunted houses in America. This is probably down to its geographical placement right on top of so many dead. The Myrtles Plantation is said to be home to no less than 12 ghosts. Legend has it that 10 murders took place here, but only one is on record. The murder of William Winter occurred on the front porch of the house where he was shot. However, it's claimed that he then staggered back inside and up the stairs, apparently stopping on the 17th step where he died. His spirit still lives somewhere on the property. Another tale tells of Chloe, or Chloe as she was otherwise known. Chloe was reportedly a slave owned by Clark and Sarah Woodruff. One story tells of how Clark had pressured the young slave girl into being his mistress. Another story tells of her being caught listening to her master's news and having her ear cut off, and she since has worn a green bandana to hide it. She then went on to cook a birthday cake containing a high concentration of poison, but her plan backfired, and only Sarah and her children ate the cake, and they all died shortly afterwards from the poison. It's said that young Chloe was hanged by other slaves and thrown in the Mississippi River. There are a wealth of other stories here at the Myrtles Plantation, including the story of 3 Union soldiers who were killed here during the Civil War, and also tales of a bloodstain roughly the shape of a person that just won't come clean. Some cleaners have said that they were unable to push their mop or broom into the space. There's a custom stating that mirrors be covered after the death of someone. Well, apparently one mirror in this house was overlooked, and so it trapped the souls of Sarah and her 2 children. It's said to this day that their faces or handprints can be seen to appear on the mirror. Another example of a real-life ghost story that'll scare the hell out of you. Number 2, Hito Bashira. It would seem that if it's a real-life ghost story that you're looking for, then Japan seems to have quite a few to offer. Number 2 on our list comes from a historical event that was believed to have taken place all over Japan from as far back as the 15th century. Hito Bashira is the practice of human sacrifice, where a person is buried alive under or near large-scale buildings like dams, bridges, or castles as a prayer to the gods so that the building will not be destroyed by natural disasters like floods or attacks by enemies. This type of human sacrifice dates back pretty much as far as Japanese records go, with instances recorded to have happened in the year 323 AD, and they keep mentioning it until as far forward as the 16th century. Whenever large building projects would take place, especially those that were complicated, dangerous, and were built on, over, or near water, that is when they would bury someone alive nearby so as to ease the gods. The most prominent tales of Hito Bashira comes from a castle that was commissioned by a great samurai. As the building was being constructed, the walls kept on collapsing. It was decided that a sacrifice would be needed, and a one-eyed woman was chosen. She agreed on one condition: her son would become a samurai. The lord of the castle agreed, and once she was sacrificed, the construction of the castle continued on without any more trouble. The lord of the castle was moved to another area of Japan soon after the castle was completed, and the boy never became a samurai. Every spring after the lord of the castle left, the castle's moat would flood. The villagers believed that the rain was caused by the unhappy spirit of the one-eyed woman because her son was never made samurai, and her one request was never met. They called the rain the Tears of Oshizu's Sorrow. A memorial has since been erected in an attempt to calm her spirit. Number 1. Bloody Mary. With there only being room on our list for one more terrifying tale, there's no better real-life ghost story to tell you than that of Bloody Mary, a ghost tale that's as old as time. This real-life ghost story centers around a woman who lived in the woods of Pennsylvania. The woman in our tale lived in a small house in the woods, where she sold herbal remedies for a living. The people in the nearby town called her Bloody Mary, and said that the woman was a witch. Legend has it that if you were to cross her path, then your cows would go dry, their food stores would rot away before winter, and their children would become sick with fever. Then, the little girls in the nearby village started to disappear, one by one. No one could find out where the little girls were going. The families of the missing girls began to search the woods and buildings, but still, none of the missing girls were found. A few brave men even went to Bloody Mary's cottage in the woods to see if the girls were there, but she denied any knowledge of it. When they went there, though, they found that Bloody Mary looked younger and more attractive than ever, and it seemed to have lost her old, haggard appearance. The villagers were suspicious, but had no proof of her involvement in the disappearances. One night, a young girl from the village woke to the sound of a beautiful melody, and so she followed it out of the house.
Hey YouTube, don't go anywhere.
You're about to get a sneak peek into our new show, Rise.
On NBC.
I want you to come to opening night. I want you to see me. This part of me is new.
Her mother had been awake with a toothache and saw her daughter leaving the house. She screamed for her husband, who followed the girl as she walked towards the woods. There, at the edge of the woods, the villagers saw Bloody Mary standing with a magic wand pointed at the young girl's house. The farmer shot Bloody Mary with a silver bullet, which hit her hip. She was then taken back to the field where the villagers burnt her at the stake. As she burned, Bloody Mary cursed the villagers. She said that if any of the villagers mentioned her name out loud in front of a mirror, she would send her spirit to take revenge upon that person for her horrible death. From that day forward, it was said that if you mentioned her name 3 times in front of a dark mirror, Bloody Mary will appear and tear your body to pieces so your soul can burn as hers once did. Alright, Top 5ers, we have something very exciting for you to see. Make sure to visit our other channel, The